Welcome. I'm Gloria Simmons, director of the Thatcher Gallery, and I'm here just to say hello and welcome to everybody on behalf of the gallery and the Museum Studies program. It's a real pleasure to see everybody today and to be able to celebrate the gorgeous exhibition in the gallery. I just got another compliment. That's the really wonderful part of my job. People see me in the gallery and I get all the compliments, and I'm passing it on to you guys, okay? So congratulations. As you may imagine, I see the potential for galleries, museums, libraries, and universities to serve as essential quiet spaces or sanctuaries for contemplation and community building, self-examination and learning. So I'm really pleased that the gallery gets to house this exhibition and be part of that conversation about what is sanctuary. I think the timing is really wonderful too. It's at the end of the year as we're looking back at the year that's gone by and the challenges and troubles and also hopefully the joys that have happened. And we're preparing for the holidays and looking to spend time with family and loved ones and friends, and then also looking forward to the new year. So please come to the gallery, make this space yours, and use it for those, to think about those things. Before I hand the event over to the presenters, I want to let you know about a few more events that are linked to the exhibition, as well as acknowledge a few people. So first of all, the gallery is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and as part of that, we're collaborating with Art History, Arts Management, and Museum Studies to present Cheryl Haynes, who is the director of the Foresight Foundation. So on Wednesday, February 6th, from 6 to 7:30 in the Fromm Hall Xavier Auditorium just next door, she'll be speaking about Out of Place, the power of art in unexpected spaces. So if you're not familiar with her work and Foresight, she brought Ai Weiwei's work to Alcatraz and Andy Goldsworthy's pieces into the Presidio. So she's really innovative about where she places art and works with art to surprise people and make them think about many different things, but sanctuary is definitely one of them. The gallery is also hosting several interactive programs throughout this exhibition that kind of allow us to think about quiet spaces within. So there will be programs that are introductions to Zen meditation, a solo musical performance by USF faculty, and all kinds of just kind of fun opportunities for us to be introspective in the exhibition space. Working on quiet spaces has been a reward. It always is when we get to do this project with the graduate students on campus. So I want to just say thank you to a few people. It's always a pleasure to work with Kate Leshik. Her knowledge about art history and about the museum world are seemingly endless, and every time we work with her, we learn, we expand, we improve our best practices, so we're really grateful and love it. I want to say congratulations and thank you to the class of 12 graduate students who created what you're going to see soon, as well as planned this wonderful event. They had a lot of vision and energy and really kind of they really showed what collaboration could do. They seem to be working so well together and have created a really inviting and thoughtful exhibition. So congratulations, everybody. Thank you for letting us work with you. It was a lot of fun. And then finally, I just want to say thanks to John Hawk and the Rare Book Room and the Gleason Library. The Rare Book Room has such a beautiful collection, and it's always a pleasure and wonderful to see new works that are up there and be able to bring them down so that more people will enjoy them. So thank you. So again, I hope you'll use quiet spaces as a place to have calm and inspiration through February. Okay, thanks.
Gloria. My glasses on here, 1 second. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the MA in Museum Studies program and the Department of Art and Architecture, I'd like to welcome you all to the inaugural panel celebrating the opening today of the student collaboratively curated exhibition, Quiet Spaces, Picturing Sanctuary in the Illustrated Book. My name is Kate Lushek, and I'm Associate Professor of Art History and Museum Studies here at USF, an instructor, project manager, fellow collaborator for the fall curatorial practicum class that organized the exhibition. As you will soon hear, with us today are three distinguished speakers, one from the USF Fine Arts faculty, one Museum Studies alum, and one from our community who also has worked with our students, who will be talking about their own work, their own art and curatorial work related to the themes of sanctuary and refuge from different perspectives. On behalf of the class, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their time and generosity in being here today to help us introduce the main theme of our exhibition. In a moment, three co-curators and organizers of this panel, Emma Doctors, Charlie Moreno, and Mauricio Velasco, will introduce our panelists at greater length. As you will hopefully see at our opening in Thatcher tonight, immediately following the panel, this collaboratively curated exhibition consists of approximately 40 works, all of which hail from the amazing permanent collection of USF's Donahue Rare Book Room. The 12 graduate students in the curatorial practicum from both the first and second year cohorts were given the opportunity to work directly with printed illustrated books, most of which were brand new to them. They learned how to handle and select works that spoke to their big idea of the many and varied forms of refuge different people experience and treasure. They learned to engage in object-based research, interpretation, and didactic label and panel writing, and most importantly, how to begin to think and ultimately create like professional curators. Moreover, working in design, subject content, public programs, and PR teams, they entered into a uniquely modern curatorial collaboration that saw them working together on imagining, designing, and realizing the exhibition almost from start to finish. They researched, they interpreted, they wrote gallery mock-ups, they did visitor outreach and installation, and the program here tonight. In the end, they collectively put in an enormous amount of energy and beautiful work on the show. I couldn't be more proud. At this time, I'd like all of the student co-curators to stand for us, and let's all give them a well-deserved round of applause. And I will just add that they all have these nice tags on that say co-curator, and they all want to speak to you during the exhibition opening, so please go and introduce yourself and ask them about the works that they worked on individually. Before I turn it over to the students, I'd also like to recognize a few institutional collaborators without whom this project would never have materialized. On behalf of the class, I'd first like to thank the Gleason Library Head of Special Collections, John Hawk, who in his work overseeing the Donahue collection has been such an invaluable partner in this project. John gave our class prolonged firsthand access to the collection and worked directly with students on studying the volumes and helping them install this week as well. Behind the scenes, starting well over a year ago, he also helped me identify and cull works from the tens of thousands of volumes in the collection from which the students could make their selections and prepare the works for display. My students and I are enormously grateful for his and the Donahue's enormous contribution to this student and institutional collaboration. We also owe more than an enormous debt of gratitude to Thatcher Gallery and director Gloria Simmons, especially, as well as gallery manager Nell Herbert and program assistant Allie Cunningham, as well as all of the Thatcher Gallery undergraduate student workers who have worked so hard as well to help us stage this exhibition all semester long. In addition to Gloria, Nell, and Allie, I'd like to recognize the student volunteers, undergrads, who have helped us: Delaney Gibbons, Corinne Laudner, Mackenzie Miller, Rain Thomas, and Angela Ting. Such curatorial collaborations between Thacher Gallery and Museum Studies, as well as art history, have long been exceptionally close, and we never take them for granted. I also want to sincerely thank Fine Arts Professor Sergio de la Torre and his own art collaborator, artist Chris Treghieri, for their incredible artistic and interactive contribution to our exhibition. The Sanctuary is a quiet place installation that you'll see in the show, which I think so beautifully reflects the theme and sets the tone for our entire show, is part of a much bigger mobile urban art project dedicated to drawing attention to issues of sanctuary related to immigration and asylum in a public forum through an activist approach to printmaking. Please take the time to read the label next to the work while you're in the exhibition, and also please use the pencils to add your thoughts on what sanctuary means to you directly to their work. And I will say that this may be the only time that you get to write on a work of art and feel good about it, so please take the opportunity. Great deal of appreciation also goes to my wonderful colleagues in Museum Studies and the Art History Arts Management program, especially Academic Director Paula Birnbaum, for their enormous support in helping us realize this very complex project. Finally, my thanks go to my students, who I believe trusted me. I hope they trusted me, as they were charged with learning about the history and theory of museum curating at the same time that they needed to create a thoughtful, well-researched, and curatorially sophisticated exhibition of works that they may never have otherwise looked at in the framework of a topic that was not of their choosing initially, and in such a short time span, 14 weeks. As a friend and colleague once described this process, the students were challenged to build a bike at the same time that they had to ride it. At this juncture, I'd like them all to stand again, one last time, as I call their name out, and please stand again. Sorry, and you just have to stand again. Emma Doctors, Angira Kodka, Adele Kinsell, Nell Cronky, Colette Militello, Charlie Moreno, Jessica Noyes, Ana Pau Romero, Megan Udell, Mauricio Velasco, Ana Volante, last but not least, Valerie Wainwright. With that, I now turn it completely over to the students. Thank you all for coming and braving the weather to share this special day with us.
Thank you, Kate. That was very thoughtful. Hello, everyone. My name is Mauricio Velasco. I am a first-year Museum Studies graduate student here. And on behalf of our Publics Programs team that helped put up this panel and the rest of the Curatorial Practicum class for USF's Museum Studies graduate program, I'd like to welcome you all to our panel titled Sanctuary in Dialogue, Research and Practice. Thank you for coming. This panel expands on our exhibition theme, focusing on the many and varied ways that the idea of sanctuary is pictured in modern illustrated books by featuring 3 faculty and community speakers who engage the issues in their own current research and artistic practice. We will start a conversation by having our guests discuss how their art and curatorial work engages themes of refuge or sanctuary from an individual or collective viewpoint. Through the different voices and experiences of our speakers, we also help to reinforce the idea that sanctuary can take different forms for different people. Our hope is that together we can exchange ideas about what sanctuary means and the different forms it can take. I will now turn things over to Emma Doctors, who will be moderating the next portion of the panel by introducing our speakers. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First up, I'd like to say thank you to our first speaker, Arturo Arupo. Born in Barranquilla, Colombia in 1967, Arujo joined the Jesuits in 1986 and was ordained a Catholic priest in 1999. He earned a degree in philosophy and a master in divinity from Javierna University in Bogotá, Colombia. He moved to the United States in 2001 and received a Bachelor of Arts from Seattle University, a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Cornish College of the Arts, and an MFA from the University of New Mexico. Currently, he teaches art at the University of San Francisco and works in his own studio, Inside River Studio, located here on campus. Arujo combines etching, woodblock, relief, and digital media. Inspired by nature and by the work of Rembrandt, Katie Kolowitz, and others, Arujo creates work that expresses a contemporary spirituality. His work has been shown in Colombia, USA, Mexico, and Canada. Arujo's work is a visual meditation that seeks reconciliation and identity, a fundamental aspect of his own spirituality as a Jesuit Catholic priest and artist. Arujo wants to convey images that reflect the experience of loss and grieving. In his work, he stands in the hidden tradition, the oldest tradition, the inheritance of all those who have suffered, are suffering, and will suffer. It rises up from the depths of memory, a place more profound than the silences of death, an area of lost innocence, torture, death, and violence. Cheryl.
Well, how it's work? Should I click here? Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hello. Good evening. My name is Arturo. I am a Jesuit. I am a teacher. I am a priest. And I would like to introduce some ideas in this presentation. Very simple. I am a radical introvert, and I learned some social skills, so don't expect too much. A sanctuary, an intercession of worlds that auspices reconciliation. Let me tell you a little bit about me, and I don't talk too much about me, believe me. I am not JoJo. I am an artist, a priest, and a teacher. I migrated from Colombia, moving away from the violence of the civil war of my country to face other violence and wars in the U.S. Yes, I became a warrior, a peaceful one, a spiritual warrior. And I stand today here because I think this idea of sanctuary is actually a convocation for all of us. We still believe that we can make this world better, more peaceful, more justice, more equal for everyone. Let me go step by step. I am an artist, and I create art. Yes, that's a joke. Yes, I do printmaking, and I love the practice of making images, the reproduction of images. And I do ceramics, working with clay, the contact with fire, the process, and being lost in my own process. That's wonderful. Not controlling the outcome by going through the process. As an artist, I can spend 10, 12 hours alone. And I was trained to do that. When I finished my MFA, I was socially in trouble because then I didn't know how to interact with people again. So I had to relearn social skills. Those are two of my pieces from the most recent shows in different galleries in the area. I believe that art is not an object. And I think art is an spirit. It's a way of living. It's a way of communicating. It's a way of interacting with others. So, yes, I create objects too, but they are probably results of process or ways of processing relationships. Yes, I am a priest, and I celebrate people's lives. Those are the most recent photos of my acting priesthood. A wedding, marching to the alley of the St. Dominic's Church, beautiful one. Not as beautiful as St. Ignatius. And a Latino encounter that happens in Visalia a couple months ago. I have been part of a leader of the community, Latino community. As a Spanish-speaking priest, had the opportunity to serve to the Latino community in the area. And it has been a grace for me. an amazing opportunity to reach out different peoples from different nationalities with different issues. And we are celebrating the 5th National Catholic Latino Encounter. You can imagine, this is big. Why it is big? It is big because Catholic Latinos, we are the 43% of the Catholics of the U.S. right now. So the future of the Catholic Church is on hands of the Latino community that will be more than 50% of the community, the Catholic community in the nation by 2020. Yes. So we are aware of that, and we have to work through how are we assuming leadership in this country? How are we living our faith out of moral principles? Then, I am a teacher. I thought this page 3 times, Kate. And your face was in front of me every time that I write a phrase. I am a teacher of art, and I get inspiration from my students. I don't teach art, because I don't think that is something that you can teach. I think I can teach the tradition of art. I can help my students to be insert of the tradition of making art, historical ideas, movements, trends. But the creativity is something unique that every individual is called to tap and live and embrace and suffer. Because beauty has that cost. You have to go deeper, deep inside, to get that unique voice that makes you our work art, unique. Those are 2 photos. One from probably one of the most successful groups that we have. We graduated 4 years ago for fine arts. A large group and a very interesting group as a group and as individuals. And the most recent one is that at your left, you will see a photo of my most recent students taking a special workshop in my own studio a couple weeks ago. I'm introducing lithography now in my studio and introducing some of my students in that beautiful art. Now, why I'm talking about this stuff? Because in the intersection of my walls emerges a special place that is secret. A place, I mean, experience. It's a metaphorical expression. An experience I call reconciliation. And I bring here a new set of photos, and I would like to stop talking about this experience of doing art with other people, community art. After all the training and after all my hours of work alone, I start figuring out that working with communities, making art together, brings all my worlds together. I became an artist with them. I am a priest with them. I am a teacher with them. So in that intersection, many things happen that escape totally to my control, and something new emerge. Those photos are from the Hispanic Institute in Santa Clara from the last summer. Basically, we started working in a large piece of 40 feet by 20. Each person received a piece, a board, a large board, 40 inches by 20. And each person was assigned with a specific kind of mark in that board. And nobody knew what that mark means. They only have to respect that mark and start portraying in that panel different images, expressions of themselves. They have to tell a story, their own story, with colors, with marks, with dots. Some photos of the people working on the floor from different ages, from 18 years old to 60, probably. And some of the panels became deep expressions of their own story. Let me tell you a little bit about this one, probably not too clear in this small projection, but you can see some forms in here. This is the story of a woman that is a cancer survivor 3 times. And she starts expressing her story, her struggles, her difficulties, her lights, her experience. And she brought that in that little pan. We had the chance to talk together, to talk about our own stories, our own traumas, our own failures, our own pain, in a very sincere and honest way. And then we put the image together, and the image came like this. Each person was actually making a little piece of a map, and that map was Our Lady of Guadalupe. Most of Latinos, as you may know, are from Mexican roots, and that image, specific image, became an icon of identity, and we were all together creating that single image. A sanctuary is a space where negotiation of conflicts occurs. It is the experience of taking time to figure out what the next steps is when a boundary has been transgressed in order to break the cycle of violence. I am a survivor of violence too, and that's my last personal note. I lost 10 family members in 2002 in my home country. I am coming from a country still in civil war. I know what violence means, and it's painful. But there is hope. And art became that space of reconciliation, that space when we can be whole again, that space when we can heal again. Making a sanctuary is, for me, is actually an experience, a sacred experience. The word sanctuary is from the Latin, as you may know, and it means a special place for what is secret. And the sacredness of the inner self is that place of respect that rejects violence, that brings the best of others together, that help others to find their own way of healing each other. So that's my experience and my taking about sanctuary. I don't know if we should talk about questions now or later. Later? Okay. So that's my taking.
Our next speaker is Rebu Solari. Rebu Solari, born 1965 in Brockton, Massachusetts, received a BA in Communications and Film from Stonehill College, east of Massachusetts, in 1987, and an MA in Museum Studies from the University of San Francisco in 2014. Ray has been a professional photographer for 25 years, specializing in portraiture. He is currently the Director of Curation and Exhibition Design at the Foster Youth Museum in Oakland. He strives to create long-term relationships and collaborations with communities that need assistance and access in order to have their stories told. Through the use of photography, exhibition design, and curatorial partnerships, he creates platforms for people to express themselves utilizing art, artifacts, and text. For the past 5 years, he has worked with the Foster Youth Museum to produce groundbreaking exhibitions that are now traveling throughout the United States. Ray.
Hi, I'm Rebu Solari. I'm going to speak specifically today about how the Foster Youth Museum creates a place of sanctuary, and in particular about our signature exhibition called Lost Childhoods. I was lucky enough to be part of the first cohort that graduated in the Museum Studies program here at USF, and the education was amazing, and the access that I was given a gift of access to, specifically to the director of what was then known as the Museum of Lost Childhoods, was given to me through Marjorie Schwartzer. So constantly thankful for that. What I'd like to say about the Foster Youth Museum is that we strive to create a safe space to tell stories. It's basically not so much about my artwork or my photography. It's more about the stories that foster youth have to tell, and giving them access to do that, and giving them a space, a safe space in which they can tell their stories, in which they can display this, and feel like that it's a growing relationship. That they can bring their artifacts, they can bring their art, they can bring their stories to us, and we can help them tell those things. But if eventually it turns out that they don't want to talk about those things anymore, we are not just collectors, we are caretakers and caregivers, basically. We're not just a museum that strives to collect more and more things. We want people to be able to freely take their objects and their stories and bring them to us, as well as take them away. So a brief background on the Foster Youth Museum. It was originally conceived as a learning tool for social services, for trainers in the foster community. It was basically displayed at state and county conferences. It had a homemade style and sort of a pop-up sensibility. It was just displayed on banquet tables, on top of shoe boxes. The collection was small at first. It's now grown into probably over 1,000 objects. It was being taken care of, but it was definitely not of sort of the museum quality standards of taking care of something. It was moved around a lot. You could see that the artifacts were definitely taking a beating from being moved around. It was recognized as sort of a powerful experience, but it really needed to grow and to professionalize. And it was the desire of the director at that time to not only show what was going on in the foster community to fellow fosters and social workers, but to get it to the general public, people that weren't really seeing the true stories of what was happening out there. It continues to grow, and we hope it continues to empower foster youth. It was a mix of mundane and extraordinary pieces. You could have anything from up in the corner. You could see that they would display dried milk, and like I said, it was displayed on conference tables, and it would be anything from Monopoly pieces to pins and badges. You can see the Monopoly money that has a foster youth's grandmother's name on it, and name and number, so that when they got out of being in care, that they would have a way to contact her. It was a present And it seems pretty mundane, but it was something that was carried by that youth for years and years and years and years. And to give that to us and to tell us that story was an enormous enactment of trust for us. The Orange Mask was part of a pop-up art project in which one of the former Fosters created this mask using fortune cookies. And actually, other pieces were, a penny he found. There's an actual live 22 caliber round bullet that's attached to that. So it has a certain, we have to take care of that in a certain way, protect ourselves, but protect the piece. Those 4 letters are from an incarcerated dad to his daughter. Those were carried around for years and years and years, and you could see the holes that started to appear after just being traveled. And then, there would be other mundane objects like a toilet paper roll fashioned into a sanitary napkin, which was like the only piece of personal hygiene that was available to a youth that was in foster care at the time. So in a short period of time, from me actually being able to work with them as an intern to really spending a lot of volunteer time and working with a really small staff of anywhere between 3 and 5 people, we, after months of preparation, put together a show, our first exhibition at Warehouse 416 in Oakland. And it was a huge collaboration, not only between this small staff, but also between the larger foster youth community. And they influenced us in not only just the content, but in the design of how people flowed through the exhibition, how they interacted with the exhibition, how they interacted with the docents that were former foster youth. They were not just foster youth that were kind of hanging out talking about just their pieces that they had donated, but they were trained in museum preparatory skills and doceting. This was a major move for this piece. It was seen by the general public. It received a lot of press. I would say I think a total of about 3,000 people saw that first exhibition. And then quickly it grew into a much, much larger exhibition that traveled from Oakland to the Grace Cathedral in San Francisco to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to where it was displayed at a cathedral there, to where it spent 6 months at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, which was a huge, huge exhibition. Over 60,000 people saw that exhibition alone in 6 months. And we feel that about maybe a total of 70,000 people have seen it now in about 2 years. These collaborations allow us to grow this exhibition, to continue to tell stories, to continue to provide these spaces where people, former fosters, current fosters, could come in, talk about their stories, give us their artwork, their artifacts, let us take photographs of them. It's about engagement, it's about education, it's all about collaboration. And it really does tie into that theme of giving this space of sanctuary. At the same time, we were displaying this major exhibition, the Lost Childhoods exhibition, changed the name to the Foster Youth Museum, and also created 2 additional traveling exhibitions, one called Tribute, which was an exhibition about tattoos in tribute to their time in foster care, and Homeless, which is just about the pipeline, the conduit from foster youth being in care and group homes to homelessness. We take great pride in the fact that we not only rely upon fosters to be donors, but we employ them as much as we possibly can to be installers, to be staff, to be project managers, to be speakers, and to be artists. We are always about our collaboration, and with every time that we travel, every place that we go, we make sure that we are collaborating with that community, whatever that local community is. So if we go to Arkansas, it's the Arkansas community. If we go to Salinas, it's the Salinas community. We specifically tailor the exhibitions to deal with whatever community that we're in. There are the two other examples of the exhibitions that are out there now, Tribute and Ordinance. So as we continue to grow and travel, like I said, we continue to provide these spaces and we encourage the collaborations. But most of all, as I said before, we're caretakers, caregivers, and not just collectors. It's our way of creating this sanctuary in the museum world. These are, so in keeping with the tradition of having multiple exhibitions being worked on at one time, these are two additional exhibitions that we're working on right now. In the corner here, nearest corner to me, is a new exhibition called Chosen. It's about chosen family. Most fosters, when they go into foster care, are separated from their family and often don't have any contact with their biological families throughout their whole entire lives. So they create these chosen families with people that they meet and share these special relationships with. And we are now gathering these stories and portraits to talk about these special relationships. The photograph next to it is a story that we were lucky enough to be told in Arkansas. It's a devastating story about a foster youth who witnessed the murder of his brother and his grandmother. And the only thing that he had left from that family was the T-shirt that he's holding right now. And it happened to be the T-shirt that his brother was wearing when he was murdered. Next to the bottom of them are two brothers that live in Salinas. One is an undocumented youth, and the other has been lucky enough to be sort of adopted by a family that has helped him go through the documentation process. But Salinas, we were in Salinas for a couple months doing exhibition work there, and we were privileged enough to talk to undocumented youth that work in the fields, that travel basically throughout the whole year. They pick here, they pick in Arizona, some of them have the privilege of going to school, others don't, but they were willing to, even though they were undocumented, they were willing to tell our stories and tell their stories and let us take photographs of them. Another youth from Salinas also talked about having the space to being in Salinas, having the space of documenting what her life is like in her journal, and she donated her journal to us. And we do we try to do educational programs at the same time. We teach photography courses every year in Humboldt. We do digital storytelling every year in Berkeley. It's just one of these things that for a small staff and a small traveling museum, we don't have a permanent space. We take great pride in, and it's very important for us to always have that community relationship. And that's who the Foster Youth Museum is. Thank you.
Our third and final speaker is Felix Oribe, and we were introduced to him through our classmate, Ana Valente. As a Bay Area native, he has been documenting life's in-between moments for the past 12 years. Felix is currently based in San Francisco, where he's an artist in resident for City Hope, a nonprofit based in the Tenderloin. Felix's work displays a sensitivity for true human authenticity and uniquely beautiful aesthetics. Felix portrays people as they are while simultaneously pulling back the layers, often revealing more about the subject than text or video would be capable of sharing. Thank you, Felix.
How's it going, guys? One thing about the exhibit that Anna helped me with, it is amazing. I did not know what I was getting into when the San Francisco Library asked me and my project partner to do an exhibit at the San Francisco Library. So Anna, that exhibit is amazing. Thank you for the help with that. So my name's Felix. I am one of two members of, okay. I'm one of two members of, okay, there we go. It's coming back. It wanted to update. I'm one of two members of the Tender Souls Project. I am currently trying to figure out how this works. I'll do this. Okay, got it. Okay, that's what I wanted. All right, thank you. Okay, so what is Tender Souls? Tender Souls is it's a project that me and my partner Brenton did, kind of just documenting the Tenderloin. When you hear the word Tenderloin, if you're not familiar, it's pretty much part of town in San Francisco that's like the center point in the city. There's like a lot of negative connotations that go with the Tenderloin. The New York Times did a couple articles recently about the neighborhood and just calling, like, I think Hyde Street was like the dirtiest street in San Francisco, which I thought was pretty interesting. Another New York Times photographer came out, literally just went to the police station in the Tenderloin, like pretty much just took a step outside of the police station, took a photo to the left, took a photo to the right, took a picture of the garbage can in front of the police station, and that was the image that was portrayed to the audience of the New York Times. And so for me and Brenton, we kind of have our own ties to the Tenderloin, but my experience through the Tenderloin was just it was an experience of just like going in there, volunteering with the community organization called City Impact. They're a faith-based organization, and kind of just visiting with residents. So I got to see who actually lives in the Tenderloin, and this was about maybe 7 years ago. And then when you look at who lives in the Tenderloin versus who you see on the street, the contrast is very different. And so for me, I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, not really understanding what San Francisco culture was. I never really came up here as a kid. Growing up in the South Bay, it's very different. And so that experience kind of showed me that there's more to this neighborhood, right? And so for the first 2 years of me living in San Francisco, I didn't like take photos really. I just kind of continued to experience this part of the city. And once I started like taking my camera in and kind of hearing more stories, it wasn't until my buddy on the Brenton kind of just acknowledged, like, hey man, like these stories that you're hearing are, you know, really important for you to share. Like, you know, you should really try to share these. And for me, I just kind of, wherever I go, I just talk to people. So it's pretty normal for me to have like a long conversation with a random stranger. And so when Brenton mentioned this, I was just kind of like, why, like who wants to hear these stories, right? And so then I just started sharing the stories, and then we decided to do a project together, and the birth of Tender Souls happened. And so really shortly, the short version of that is Tender Souls is allowing the community to speak for itself. It's not really about the images, I guess, like not really about me as a photographer. It's really about what you see here and what I see every day as a resident in the Tenderloin. This is my friend Shorty and his wife. I've known Shorty for a while now, probably 4 years. Actually, no, 3 years. And I didn't even know he had a wife until this year. And they've been together since 2003. And this was the first day that I met her. And I was like, well, I didn't even know you had a wife. And they're, he's always out on 6th Street. He's not homeless. He has he's in an SRO on 6th Street. And so when he saw me, he was just like, hey, like, you need to take a picture of me and my wife. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So kind of set it up. My alter ego is a wedding photographer, so I kind of use those. I was just like, all right, let's set this up. So we kind of just did a whole shoot for them. This is also Shorty. Here it's funny with this picture, you can see Salesforce in the back there. When I've taken this photo, I've been in this location, so many times on 6th Street. There's always like machinery or a car parked there, so you never actually see Salesforce Tower. But this one day that I took this photo, it wasn't there. So I was like, I have to take this photo. And my process with Tender Souls and just general photography for me is I'm always asking questions. Some of the questions go to, what was the last dream you had? What's advice you have for a young photographer? What's advice that you would tell yourself at 18? What's a memory you reflect on when you're going through a tough season to get you through it, right? And so here I asked Shorty what was the last dream he had, and he started telling me about his mother. He's like, the last, dream I had, it was with my mother, and she was singing to me. And I was like, oh, interesting. What's the last memory you have of your mother? And he goes, well, she would always draw for me. She was the best drawer. Like, she could draw anything, and when I was in elementary school, my mother was, I was trying to draw this pony, and I couldn't draw, and I was getting so upset, so I threw it away. My mom saw it, and she took me aside. She unwrinkled the paper, started drawing and helping me draw this, animal for me. And so then, at that moment, I was like, okay, I have to take this photo, Shorty. And he was like, go for it. And so, for me, photography is always relational. I can't not talk to people when I go outside, and I can't not take a photo either. So, this is my buddy Emil. The thing about Emil, he's probably, I want to say he's like 6'6". He's a giant. This guy's huge. Like literally, I'm standing at it. His chest is like at that level, right? He was born and raised in San Francisco. He learned how to drive at 9. His mother taught him. He started stealing cars at the age of 10 and 11, and he was selling them in Sacramento at 12. By the time he was 18, he had 5 felonies, right? So you could see where this is going, right? Kind of on his own, but he loved basketball. He's a big basketball guy, right? He actually has like this photo that's like archived in the SF library of him slam dunking over a car in Bodecker Park, which is a park in the Tenderloin. So a really cool guy, can't miss him. And so he's telling this story, and I was like, okay, so how did you end up back in the city? Or like, well, where'd you go after you were 18? And he was like, well, I just had one person that kind of pulled me aside and really believed in me and my talent of basketball. And he brought me down. Oh, he was a basketball coach at De Anza College, which is a junior college in the South Bay. And I was like, dude, I'm from Sunnyvale. So he was like, well, I went to, I was De Anza's in Cupertino. And I was like, what do you think of Cupertino in 1987 while you were playing basketball? And he was like, man, it was quiet, And he was like, I never had a coach or an older male figure really show me how to be an adult or really, gave me these rules that I had to kind of live by to be on the basketball team. And I was like, how did that make you feel? And he was just like, man, it felt great. I've never had that. And it really helped me, go further in my career. He ended up going to the CBA and traveling around the world. And then he goes back to 6th Street to kind of just meet up with friends that he's met, over the time. I'm going to skip over some of these photos that I have, but real quickly, this is Rose. Rose is amazing. She's a volunteer at City Hope. She's older. I want to say she's in her 60s. She was born male, identifies as female, trans woman, and I've never, like, before San Francisco, the trans community, really the LGBT community, I never really experienced in Sunnyvale, right? It's a pretty conservative town, even though it's like the tech culture. And so for me, when, like I always say, whenever somebody talks about the trans community, I always think of my friend Rose. And she, like, I sat down with her one day at City Hope, and she kind of I just told her, I was just asking her questions about what does she go through her day, like, how's her experience with the LGBT community, and she kind of just opened up to me about what she goes through. And every day she either gets name called, harassed, abused, and just like the worst, right? Like she just walks down the TL, people are catcalling her, or just, you know, thinking she's a prostitute, or just something. I can't even imagine like waking up knowing like you're gonna go outside and, you know, most likely you're gonna get harassed, right? Like that's kind of a crazy concept. This past year, I've known her for 2 years. This past year she's been assaulted 3 to 4 times, I wanna say, that I know, that she's told me of. So it's a really tough life for her. And I asked her what's her experience like when she goes to the Castro. She's like, oh, it's bad too. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I don't fit the part, you know, like I don't fit the model, you know, I don't know. So, and I was just like, really, so it's just like a really fascinating story. What I'm trying to hit on is everyone kind of really has a story here. So kind of just pay attention, follow with me. I know I can be long-winded with these. This is Janice. This was the first day I met her. She was just kind of hanging out with an elderly man in a wheelchair, and I was talking to the guy. She was really happy, and I was like, oh, you know, how's your day going? She's like, well, it's going great. And I was like, okay, what are you up to? And she's like, I'm getting ready to go home. And I was like, where's home? She's like, Detroit. And I was like, okay. I was like, you know, when are you leaving? She's like, I'm leaving tomorrow. Her nickname is Detroit. And so I was like, what's the first thing you want to do when you get to Detroit? And she's like, well, I want to go give my mom a hug. Right? And I was just like, it's pretty incredible. And she's like, everybody wants to have that feeling of being held by their mother, right? And she's like, I just want to hold her and spend, you know, a day with her just in her arms, just listening to her stories of how her and my dad hooked up, you know, what was that like? What was my grandparents like? You know, all these things. Go to the next one. This is Savannah, also an incredible story. That's her wife. She was also born male, identifies as female. But she has like a crazy story because like I interviewed her for the Tender Souls project, and it was kind of hard to get information from her. Like it was like kind of surface level the interview was going. And so I was like, okay, and I've known her for a while, just as long as I've known Rose, and she has like this really big scar on the other side of her arm. And I was like, before the interview was up, I was like, how did you get the scar? And before, she was like kind of talking to me about her journey, how she transitioned to female late, right? She not until recently, maybe in the last 5 years. And she said like she didn't feel comfortable, you know, transitioning because she didn't feel like she was feminine enough. And it wasn't until her sister, her play sister, said that, you know, go for it. You know, people will have to accept you no matter what, however you feel, you know, that's who you are. And so she felt confident with the support she had with her friends to transition. And so that was like as deep as it went, right? So then as I was leaving, I was like, oh, how did you know, what happened to your arm? It was like a good kind of cue for me to get that kind of note. And she just said, really simply, she was like, oh, I was living in a place in like middle America for free, and all I was doing was cleaning. Sometimes they fed me, sometimes they didn't, with like her housemates. But all I would do was clean in this house, and they would pretty much beat me up, right? And one day they were playing a little rough with me, and they got me in an arm lock, and they broke my arm, right? And she said it just like quick, like it was like I just went inside the coffee shop, grabbed a cup of coffee, and left. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that kind of like, I'm pretty sure, she was like, not enslaved, but just like it was a horrible situation. And she was able to get out of that situation with another friend that said, hey, here's money. Where do you want to go? Let's get you a ticket to San Francisco. Go there, get out of here, kind of deal. And so she was able to get out. But it's like everywhere you go, or everywhere I go in the Tenderloin, everyone kind of is having this really intense story, right? This is my buddy Nate. We're gonna move on from this one. This is my friend Brenda, and with Brenda, she's on the right. This is her friend, blanking on her name, on the left. This story I took about 5 years ago, and it's kind of interesting. You take a photo, you don't know where it's going to go, right? There's these moments you kind of live, you kind of relive it in your head, but you don't really have a copy of it. But this is one story that it kind of just blows my mind when I run into Brenda in the Tenderloin when I'm going to get groceries or something. Her friend passed away a couple years ago. Brenda, she was probably at the lowest of the low here. She was the heaviest she's been. She was homeless, kind of everything, you name it. Now she has a house. She has her own spot. She has a job. She's like 80 pounds lighter. I remember the day she got housing, I ran into her and she was like, Felix, I got a place. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, how did that happen? She was like, they just said if you needed a place, go sign up here. I got on the list. They called me 2 weeks later, and I have a house. And now I'm going to Glide, getting, a dresser. I'm getting clothes, And it's like these simple things that you don't realize that are kind of a big deal, like a dresser, a closet, a place to wash your hands, a mirror to look at your face, It's you kind of lose these senses of your humanity, right? That remind you that you're human, right? The way we interact with people, the way we come across a homeless person lying on the street. This is International Red, legend on 6th Street. He's at the donut shop. If you want to hear his story, you should go meet him on 6th Street. He's there every day. He'll sell you a watch. This is, I'm blanking on her name, but incredible story. Notice the lady in the back too. The lady that's holding my camera, she was actually like standing up against the wall and like facing the wall, and she was talking to the wall. And she was kind of like, you run into her a couple times, and she's just kind of saying these words and just not really making any sense. And as I'm walking with a buddy of mine, she just says, Rolleiflex, she's going through saying all these words, and I'm like, that's interesting. Like, I have this camera on my neck, it's a Rolleiflex camera, and she, not even making eye contact with me, she just says it. So I kind of like, okay, maybe it's a coincidence. And then I keep walking, she's like, medium format camera, and I was like, okay, do you know this camera? What's your relationship to this camera? And so I stop and I talk to her, and it's kind of hard to hear her, but you can hear the story that she's trying to tell me. And it's, she said that my boyfriend had this camera. We used to take photos of the Transamerica building on the weekends. And I was like, that's incredible. I was like, do you want to hold it? And she was like, yes. She held it. I asked if I could take another photo with my other camera. It was pretty cool. It was just a pretty cool moment. It's kind of one of those things, is like, even if you can't understand someone's word, just try to make an effort, right? If someone's talking to you, sometimes it can sound like they're trying to harass you, but sometimes people want to just have a conversation with you. That's Vicky in the back. This is Vicky right here. You can see this smile, right? I hadn't seen Vicky for like 2 weeks, right? And so this was like the first time I'd seen Vicky. And she got housing. She actually had to leave housing that night that I took this photo, because it was like an emergency situation where a parent and a daughter needed a place to stay, so they kind of moved her back on the streets and gave priority to the family. But she was still happy. She was like, it's okay, I'll find something, right? And so Vicky had this immense, like, she always wanted me to take her photo. I'd always bring it back, bring her a copy back, right? I always print out the photos and give everyone that I take a photo of a copy of the image. But Vicky, I never really got to hear her story, right? It was always like, how you doing? What's going on? I'm doing fine. Never really saw her upset, but I always saw her in the same spot, or two spots, here or across the street on 6th Street. And then I hadn't seen her for like a month, right? I hadn't seen her for 2 months. I'm starting to get worried. I have this album of photos that I have in my hands that are printed or whatever, and then somebody sees Vicky's photo, they're like, that's Vicky. I was like, yeah, you know her? She's like, yeah, she passed away, right? She had 2 strokes, and she passed away on the street, right? And it wasn't until after people would see the photo album that I had, and they see her photo, and they'd ask for the photo. They're like, hey, can I get a copy of this? Hey, this is Vicky. Hey, she meant so much to me. She was the first person I met in 1999 on 6th Street that really welcomed me into San Francisco, right? And then I realized, someone told me her dad was a big-time drug dealer in the East Bay. She had a twin brother. She had 3 other brothers. She had a son that committed suicide. Just a tough life, right? And so you have no idea what people are going through when you see this, right? A moment like this is like literally right around the corner from my house. But people that we walk past every day, they all have stories. They all come from somewhere. We all have stories. We all come from somewhere. I'm not saying everybody go to the Tenderloin and try to listen to everybody, although that would be great, right? We all have those needs of being heard and being seen. But just people that you're around every day, people that you interact with, your circle that you're walking to, like I'm just getting a cup of coffee, I'm at point A, I need to get to point B, but who is in between those 2 points, right? Just try to acknowledge people. For me, what a sanctuary is a community. The people make a community. You make the community. This is the community. Thank you for letting me talk here.
All right. All right, let's give one more round of applause for all of our panelists for sharing their work with us. As we all just heard, there is an enormous potential to tell important stories of sanctuary through such art and museum and gallery exhibitions. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlie, and I'm also a second-year museum studies student here at USF. We now have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. So at this time, could all 3 panelists please join me up on stage and sit right over here? Okay, so does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Please raise your hand up high if you have a question for our panelists. I actually have a question for you guys. For each one of you, how has your personal definition of sanctuary changed while conducting your line of work? If so, how? Yeah. So maybe just talk about your personal definition of sanctuary. What does it mean to you personally?
I think for me, I never really thought so much about the need for sanctuary. I mean, I always had my personal community that I felt, at home with. But realizing that a lot of people don't have that, just don't have that opportunity, and are alone out there. I think as you hear more and more stories about that situation that exists, you realize how important it is to have that space, to have those people to feel to react to be around, and it really becomes important not only to cherish what you have, with your family, with your friends, but also to respect important to understand and realize that that's what's sacred to them, and it's just as important as what's sacred to you.
The definition of sanctuary changed for me like a lot on the drive over here. And I was like, oh, what is sanctuary? And like, what is my sanctuary? And it's kind of interesting. It's like, for me, I feel safe like in the Tenderloin. For me, I feel safe in my home. I feel safer around people. But then I'm like, I also feel like I have this safe space of like nature and like that interaction. But not a lot of people have access to that, right? So we have to make do with what we have. But for me, I guess for me, sanctuary is comfort, you know?
I received a very interesting question from Kay Lushek at 2 p.m. and I was scared with the question. What do you mean as tense? Can you clarify what you mean by exactly? We don't want to be misrepresenting the idea as intersection of worlds that auspice reconciliation. That's the question of Kate before she run to his next class. So I spent like an hour thinking your question, Kate. And I would like to answer, because to answer your question, I went deeper before I came here. A sanctuary is not a permanent place. Though permanent places are important. Those that we call sanctuaries are symbols of remains, invitations, symbols of something that is very fragile and frugal. It is fragile, a fragile experience that emerges when we find the prevailing trends of our different roles. Perhaps what I am trying to say is that only the essence of ourself that arise in the intersections of our different ways of performing socially, an invisible common place appears. A place that is common, essential, fundamental. The truth of the human existence. I name this sanctuary. Second, only when we are in contact with the fundamental of our being, the fact that you have been portraying on the street, we can reconcile what we are. We are able to become a whole through the emerging of this essential experience of sanctuary. A sanctuary is a healing place that has the power of reuniting what had been broken, divided, alienated, marginalized, oppressed, violated. Too many words, Kate? Thank you for your question. You're always a master for that.
Okay, and I feel like that's a really great point to end on, so let's give one more round of applause for our panelists. If anyone decides that they do have questions for our panelists, they'll be joining us in Thatcher, I hope. So we now invite all of you in our audience to join us at the opening reception in Thatcher Gallery. Be sure to send an image from the exhibit that resonates with you using the hashtag #PicturingSanctuary on Instagram. We also invite you to fill out those surveys that you received when you walked in, and you can place finished surveys right back over by that desk. For those in the audience that will be joining us at the reception, please follow anyone that's wearing a name tag that says co-curator, as we'll all be going to Thatcher together. Thank you once again for joining our panel.